We are running some 20 minutes behind the schedule, but we still have one very interesting and engaging last session. And then we're going to have some closing remarks just to culminate these 2 days of the final event. Thank you very much. My name is Zupan. I also work at Transparency International. I'm the program lead on Integrity Pacts. In this last session, we would like to present one of the aspects that we have already touched upon in the previous session and in yesterday, the aspects on Integrity Pacts in relations to citizens. There is a dual role of Integrity Pacts with relations to how we engage and we support citizens. There is one, the first one is invested in the independent monitor, the CSO, who work in the interest of citizens. So through their independent monitoring, the CSO organization, they ensure that the public value of the monitor's project is met. Then there is a second aspect, which is more the active or passive, let's say, involvement of citizens in the monitoring of public contracting. In this regard, the project pilot was a unique opportunity for us to experiment, to advance what were already our experiences with citizen engagement. And I have to say that from the very onset, it was far from being easy. So procurement is often seen as a highly technical and process that takes place behind closed doors. In addition to that, the procured services or goods are sometimes appealing or sometimes attractive to citizens and other times not. On top of that, a global pandemic with social security measures in place obviously didn't help us. Nevertheless, in the first project, we had lots of interesting experiences. We have tested a lot. And here today with us, we are presenting some of the learnings. As you will hear from the speakers today, there are quite a number of factors to take into consideration before deciding the best approach to engage with citizens. We're going to share a couple of slides now with you, just to facilitate the key messages around citizen engagement. So we were talking, we can go to the next one already. So we're talking about some of the factors that need to be taken into account for anybody who's considering including citizen engagement in an Integrity Pact. So the first analysis is on the procurement project that we are talking about. So looking at the project value, its visibility, the public support, the duration, and also the proximity of the project that we are monitoring. They played an important part. The second one is the affected communities analysis. Very important to understand who are we engaging with, who would we like to engage with. So understanding what's their awareness of the initial understanding of public contracting, what is the potential for collective active with this community, and also the trust in public authorities. Thirdly, there's important also to understand what the contracting authority is about. So the legal framework, the governance incentives, and the presence of invested interests in the project that we are monitoring. The fourth part is a self-analysis that each monitoring organization needs to do to understand what's the existing know-how in citizen engagement and social accountability, what are the resources available, both in terms of staff and costs. This is a type of analysis that our partners did at the beginning of the pilot to understand what is the best approach that they want to take. Some have developed advanced models, others have decided not to engage with citizens. So it was really a testing bed for us to understand under what conditions citizen engagement can work. There's different activities that we have organized within the partnership: town hall meetings between contracting authorities, bidders, and citizens, field visits to the, for example, on the construction of some new highways or renovations. We had trainings organized for citizens, for example, in tech schools, labs, summer schools. And we also had networking opportunities, capture and to stimulate the participation of citizens, technology, and whistleblowing channels. In the next slide, you will see a couple of images of what these activities look like. We see an awareness raising campaign in Romania around the disaster. We see a monitoring tool with students in Italy. We see a guided tour in Portugal for the renovation of the Alcobaça monastery, the one that Karina just talked about. We also see some public consultations with citizens that were affected by the construction of a new highway in Hungary. And then lastly, we also see in Latvia what the work that was done with summer school with a group of very diverse citizens. Moving on, it's throughout the project, what we have also learned is that citizens cannot take the whole burden of leading civic monitoring. So as it requires too high level of technical know-how on procurement, and it's also a time-consuming aspect. Nevertheless, we have found ways of including them and maybe bringing them closer to some of the parts of our work. Today with us, we have 3 examples. We have from my left, Grzegorz Makowski from the Stefan Batory Foundation in Poland. We have Paola Buttiglione from ActionAid Italia, and we have also Michaela Rajkova from TI Bulgaria. I welcome you and for this session. We'll start now with Grzegorz from the Stefan Batory Foundation, who monitored the modernization of election, important one. From the foundation, that's about the role of integrity participation. These two are on one hand representing the interests of the citizens, and on the other one, their act as the monitoring of public contracting. Please, Grzegorz, you have the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, Ivan. Hello, everyone. Hello, participants.
With your settings, at least on our end.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Can you hear me? I'm sorry once again. Can you hear me? Something has happened. I hope you can hear me. I had problems with hearing Ivan, but I suppose he asked me the questions that were already agreed, hopefully. So moving on, I mean, to my less than 10 minutes. I think, first of all, I would say that, I mean, I think we were too ambitious at the very beginning of the pilot. And I think that altogether, I mean, I'm not thinking only about us in Poland, but in the whole consortium, that this citizens' engagement around Pact will simply rise kind of naturally. But during implementation of the Pact, it appeared that it is not a natural process, and in many cases you really have to put a lot of work, I mean, to get the, let's say, more massive engagement, which is necessary in terms of this 2 types of engagement that Ivan mentioned, that and types of monitoring, and being monitored as an independent, and as being monitored as a kind of representative of interest of citizens. So being representative in a way is easier because I mean, simply you act as someone, as an organization, as a civil society organization that thinks that represents citizens, public interest on behalf of citizens. And you simply, I mean, the smaller group, organized group in the organization can act faster, can act, let's say, easier, can interact much better with other parties of integrity, CA and contractor. But of course, there is a question of legitimization. I mean, for this, I mean, do we really have, as a single organization, legitimization to represent anyone? And this is always a question for CSOs. I mean, if we have this legitimacy or not. And this problem is solved when you have a whole community engaged in monitoring, or maybe not whole, but I mean more than one organization or at least some groups. But in our pact, in our conditions, it was very difficult to reach it. I mean, there were many factors that, let's say, made it very difficult, starting from the physical factor. I mean, our pacts and our investment was 300 kilometers from the headquarters of Batory Foundation. So it was difficult to build a link with local community there. Also, the specific characteristics of the investment that we monitored was also a factor. I mean, it was very difficult, big infrastructural project, and very difficult to understand to, let's say, people who are not experts, who are not engineers, lawyers, or even experts in anti-corruption policies. And of course, because of the nature of this project, it was also very difficult to even to have an access to monitor it, direct access. I mean, to get into the construction site, to have access to documents and so on and so on. Of course, we try to overcome it in many ways. We try to mobilize local media, local citizens groups, local organizations, local governments, with a minor success. And there was not too much interest in helping us and working with us at the local level. We, of course, also tried to build kind of individual channels of communication between us and the local communities. So, for example, we opened a whistleblowing channel on our website that was secure, and actually we had even one report from the local whistleblower on a supposed irregularity. But it was difficult, and I think that if we were not so optimistic at the very beginning of the pilot, and we would prepare, let's say, a different team, different budgets, I mean, and different set of actions to only for the mobilizing people at the local level, maybe we would be more successful in these terms. So I don't say that it is impossible. I think that it simply required a maybe different approach, and we should be more careful with the different projects, because, for example, especially Italian project, where the archaeological site was monitored, was very close to the local community. It was kind of a local jewel. I mean, everyone wanted to have it. Everyone, maybe not everyone, but many people were very much interested. It was much more accessible, and let's say naturally, it was, I think, easier to mobilize people there around the Integrity Pact. This is Italian Integrity Pact. That's my theory. But I think it's possible. It's possible, and shall I move to another question, Ivan?
No, just if we go one step back, like you have addressed the challenges, of course, also the possibilities, but like if we just go from the basis of the IP, how do you transfer the finding that you are doing to the citizens? What is foreseen by the IP? Do you have to publish reports? Do you have to engage with them? So what is the minimum standard that you need to put in place?
I think the minimum, very, very minimum standard is to organize the flow of information. I mean, it's very important to provide, even if we are in the role of this representative of the single of organization. I think it is really important not to close in the relation with the CA or the contractor, because even if we don't have this, let's say, more massive engagement in the pact, it is still important to deliver information to the public. And I think this should be secured in the Integrity Pact, and we had this in our pact in the content of in the agreement with the contracting authority and the contractor. And we did our best to publish as much as possible. Of course, we had some confidentiality clauses and some limitations because I mean, the contracting authority and the contractor, they simply need as a company, I mean, to secure some information, and this is understandable. But we were in the role of the providers of the information. And actually, it played some role because there were some moments in our pilot, in our monitoring, where the local media used the information that we provided at the website, at our website dedicated to Integrity Pact. And I think in the last stage of the pilot, last stage of the monitoring process, when we faced, let's say, probably the most difficult situation in our pact, when there was a conflict between the local community in one of the municipalities and the contractor and the contracting authority around the one unfinished important element of this infrastructural project. I mean, suddenly, I mean, the local councilmen, local authorities, local communities started to look at our web page, started to study, you know, all the documents that we provided there, looking for the information, why this happened, you know, in this area, why this happened in their municipality. And this generated actually the mobilization. I mean, we started receiving requests from the local council and the local authorities for helping them to organize meeting with contracting authority and the contractor. I mean, to explain what is the problem on the ground and to think together, I mean, how it can be solved and what are the perspectives of solving it. So we are in the very end of the pact of the monitoring activities. We managed actually to have this real mobilization from the local level. We managed to bring people from Warsaw, from the capital, from the headquarters of the contracting authority, from the headquarters of the contractor, to interact together with this local community. And at least, I mean, it wasn't possible to resolve immediately the situation, but at least the local community had a feeling, had more knowledge what is the situation, and they had feeling that, I mean, someone cares about this, someone wants to solve it, and they knew what is the perspective. I mean, how this problem can be solved. But it was reactive, yes. It was very, let's say, difficult situation, and the conflict was growing. The question was, I mean, if we could mobilize people at the earlier stage and maybe, let's say, solve this problem a little bit earlier with involvement of the local community. I won't tell you, I mean, what would be if we manage to do this, but theoretically, I think it could help at the earlier stage. So there are possibilities, and yes, I mean, but we should be prepared for more work. Let's say simply.
Thanks, Grzegorz. You start unpacking the importance of providing information, engaging with communities, having the trying for them also maybe support some of the resolution of conflicts or pitfalls along the monitoring cycle. But you also mentioned that one thing that would have worked in your case was to engage with a broader community. And this is something that we have achieved with the IP that ActionAid Italia monitored. And we do have here Paola Buttiglione, who will tell us a little bit more on what was their approach in the in engaging with communities, the first step that you had to take, and also if you can also explain us a little bit what was the outcome of all of this. Okay. All right. I'll try to fix the microphone. Can you hear me better? Yes, does it work?
In the meanwhile, I can share the slide if you like. No? Okay. Okay, that's so embarrassing.
Let's move to our scenario maybe simply. Ivan unfortunately disappeared. I mean, we're like in the radio, yes. I mean, and the radio hates silence. So I propose, I mean, Paola, just move on and
Okay.
and speak.
What about now? Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes. Now the sound,
Okay.
your sound is better.
Okay.
I should. Okay.
But you are very silent, Paola. You should speak louder.
And now?
Yes, Ivan.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, now it's very good.
Okay. Okay. So I'm starting. The two monitored intervention. Okay. The two monitored intervention are located in the northern part of Calabria region in the south of Italy, in the archaeological park of Sibari. Despite its extraordinary historical and archaeological value, the was in a very critical situation due to several reasons: the floods caused by the Crati River, the difficulties of the ordinary management by the Ministry of Cultural Heritage, and the hard accessibility of the site. The situation is so critical that 2 years ago, the organization Europa Nostra proposed to put the park in the list of the 7 cultural sites most endangered in Europe. Okay. Both the park and the museum, because of the high hydrological risk and the various flood, has received numerous national and European funds. The 2 projects monitored by the Integrity Pact are included in a broader program called MUMAX, promoted science. What?
Sorry, Paola, could you maybe put on full screen so that we can see better what's written on it?
Okay, I try. Okay, it's simple. Okay. Okay. I restart. The 2 projects monitored by the Integrity Pact are included in a broader program called MUMAX, promoted since 2006 by Ministry of heritage and co-founded by European funds from the former budget, namely the National Operational Program Cultural, Natural and Tourism Attractors, and more recently, National Operational Program Culture and Development. The two interventions monitored by ActionAid Italian are those highlighted in yellow. This broader program founded different interventions for Tiberi worth around 15 million euros. The museum intervention was split in two lots, one for works and the second one for services and supplies. You can see on the table some data about the contractual procedure and the contract. Both are finished. The second one for services and supplies is still active by the end of the monitoring monitoring period by ActionAid Italian on September 2021, but it was terminated by the end of the same year. The second one, the intervention in the archaeological park, was split in two lots as well, one for works and the second for services and supplies. The first lot was finished in 2019, and the second one is paused and is still in pretendering phase. Regarding work done with affected communities, together with the technical monitoring activities and institutional communication aimed at the general public, from the very beginning, ActionAid Italy promoted the involvement in the pilot of a group of citizens and the local associations to create a wider community interested in civic monitoring of public spending. We wanted the affected communities to understand the public procurement processes and to practice monitoring them. Efforts to fight corruption and mismanagement in public procurement should also involve citizens. This is a matter of sustainability and impact. By investing in raising the awareness of citizens and building the capacity, some of those citizens could continue to monitor other public procurement processes after the conclusion of the pilot. Also, the citizens' engagement maximizes the impact because the affected communities involved would tend to hold the public administration and the policymakers to account for the quality of the services provided. First of all, in the first semester of 2016, we did a preliminary stakeholder mapping focusing on sectors that were somewhat linked to the pilot, such as the cultural one, local tourism, anti-mafia movement, active citizenship, and the local development. We first identified a short list of trusted and verified people belonging to personal networks of ActionAid Italy and asked them to recommend or involve other trusted people. At first, we identified 300 local contacts belonging to different communities, mainly from university and civil society. We started with a one-week field visit in July 2016 and 2 rounds of phone interview between July and September 2016. During the field visit, we undertook 14 face-to-face meetings with 24 people from different municipalities and backgrounds as well. Researchers, teachers, university professors, students, and activists in local associations. Based on the feedback from this meeting, we decided to organize a civic monitoring school. During the phone interview, we discussed with each of the shortlisted contacts the following topics: other communities or associations they could involve, main issues they might be interested in, topics they want to teach and or learn during the civic monitoring school, preferred logistic arrangement. In February 2017, before the school started, we developed civic monitoring regulation every civic monitor had to sign in order to avoid the risk of a potential conflict of interest. It included the basic information such as name, contact details, occupation, potential conflict of interest, and formal and non-formal membership in political parties or associations, and clauses such as declaration that participation in civic monitoring activities was on their own behalf, without any other interest than the public one, acceptance that the civic monitoring was aimed to realize evidence-based monitoring reports focusing on the monitoring intervention, duty to not disclose or disseminate the information acquired through the civic monitoring activities before a discussion with the independent supervisor. The civic monitoring schools are structured as training of trainers to allow civic monitors involved to share the acquired knowledge and skills with other citizens. Given the technical nature of public procurement, we first identified a set of knowledge and skills that citizens need to have in order to perform their civic monitoring role. There were 5 sessions of the school that you can see in this slide. We have dealt with the following topics: national legislation on public procurement and transparency, European funds planning and cohesion policies, governance of cultural heritage, structure and content of the Integrity Pact, digital tools to use open data related to tenders, tools for crowd mapping activities. The lawyer and the technical advisor explained the main administrative and technical aspect of the awarded contracting, included the key features of the winning offer. There were also meetings with the contracting authority representative, the first with the regional secretary Salvatore Patamia, the second with the sole project manager for the museum intervention, Adele Bonofiglio, who guided the citizen in a visit to the old museum setup. Another meeting was arranged on the 4th of December 2021 with the new museum director, Filippo Damma, to discuss the future of the museum and the archaeological park and to verify the execution of the monitoring intervention. During the first 2 years of the project, ActionAid Italy also carried out outreach activities in a local high school. The involvement of the targeted group of citizens and their association consisted not only in live opportunities, but also remotely through different tools. The progress of the monitoring intervention and other updates on the topics of common interest, such as public procurement, initiatives promoted by the Ministry of Cultural Heritage in Calabria, fighting against corruption, are discussed through a mailing list, an instant messaging group, and regular webinars. During the lockdown period, we organized 3 live streaming on Facebook to discuss with some experts in the field the following subject: tools for civil society to monitor public policies, the museum during the pandemic and the Faro Convention, the right to access the information about public contracting. The main goals we reached through the citizen engagement are, first of all, strengthening the level and quality of the engagement and oversight of public procurement processes by the public, and especially by intended beneficiaries and or those that are most affected. How we reach this goal? First of all, specific clauses in the Cyber Integrity Pact aimed to a broader participation. Thanks to the role of ActionAid Italy as independent supervisor, citizens are allowed to send comments, to visit the intervention during the execution phase, and to ask for more information. On the other side, the contracting authorities and the bidder representative are required to participate in debates to discuss the progresses of the interventions. Regulation that every participant had to sign to join the pilot activities. In order to avoid the risk of potential conflicts of interest, the regulation also helped to show that we are taking seriously the citizen engagement. Be connected to an European network, the institutional framework created by piloting the DigiRegio project, make the citizen willing to participate, as Calabria is affected by the organized crime and by high level of corruption in public institutions. Co-design of the training session. There has been a groundwork to identify the stakeholder in the intervention area based on a desk research, a phase of auditing of the local needs, and interview. After this mapping, first citizens involved were made to propose some topics. Then they were asked to propose and lead a wall training session on the basis of their own activities and field of expertise. Unfortunately, the pandemic avoided us to go on with the second step that had stopped at the design phase of this training session. Giving a glimpse of the economic dimension of public contracting sector, it may be more affordable to reach stakeholders by linking the project goal to the possible economic development rather than to ethical values. The second goal that we reached is strengthening the capacity or willingness of intended beneficiaries, targeted public, to engage in monitoring public procurement processes and reporting perceived risk. How we reached this goal? First of all, capacity building, proponing capacity building as a pure factor. The knowledge and skill practiced during the training session may be applied in a future monitoring action, focusing on the right to access the information about public contracting, particularly what are the documents to be published by law and how open data strengthen the social accountability towards the public, create chances of networking through the involvement of citizens from the whole Calabria region in the training session. Moreover, during the pandemic, as we organized the online STEM session, we introduced also some national experiences of civic monitoring to broaden the connection among similar associations or initiatives, the participation of contracting authorities and bidders representative in debates. It offers opportunities for all the actors involved to get closer and build the relationship of trust and collaboration. For Civic Monitor, it was important to listen firsthand to the officials about the challenges they deal with. For the contracting authority, it was good to listen to civic monitors as they represent all the interested civic stakeholders. The training session should also be aimed to prepare citizens for interaction with public authorities. I don't know if there is enough time, but I would like to show a 1 minute video.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Apologies. Can you hear me now? All right. Hopefully this is the final setting. So as I was saying, Paola, you've covered a lot of ground. You have told us a lot about how to set up the work. What are some of the activities that were successful? What were some of the lessons learned? I was very impressed by your initial work when you said that you have made those 300 initial contacts with local people. You have spent 1 week working on the field, phone interviews, 24 people involved just to getting people on board from the beginning. And this seemed to be a winning solution for you. So I would like to ask you if you could share with us what were some of the messaging, what were some of the themes that you have used that have drove citizens close to this cause. You have mentioned that you have also called covered EU governance, digital tools, anti-corruption, procurement in your schools. But what do you think were the thematics that really made citizens become more active?
In my opinion, stressing on the economic development for the region. Because of the archaeological park of Sipari is huge, but underdeveloped. So the monitored intervention could allow more visitors to go in Calabria and help the local people to develop their economy, because the economic situation of that region is very critical.
Okay, thank you, Paola. Please stay online because I see some interest. If you can post the link. So I will now move to the last speaker. While we are talking to Michaela from Bulgaria, if you want to drop already a couple of questions for the three speakers, so that then, since we're running a little bit late, but we'll take a couple after the hearing from what Michaela has to say. So. In your case, TI Bulgaria was involved with the monitoring of the construction of a tunnel, a Železnica tunnel. And this happened in a very particular environment. And the preconditions had an impact on also the way you have decided to involve citizens. Can you give us a little bit of a taste of what your approach, the chosen approach, was?
Yes, thank you, Ivan, and thank you for having me. I do hope everybody can hear me. Yes, perfect, thank you. So I do have a couple of slides that I will share to navigate to my short speech. So yeah, as Ivan already said, we were monitoring an extremely challenging project on its own. So this is the Železnica tunnel. It is a small project in terms of, you could see it's only 4.5 kilometers, but it has a huge budget. It's part of the Struma motorway, which is key road international leading from Bulgaria to Greece. And since this is the first tunnel to have been built in the country for a while, it was really interesting and challenge to begin with. To give you just a little bit very brief information on what we did face during, and that's probably only 10% of it, of what we did face during the monitoring stage. This very same project went through 2 contracting authorities, 3 tender procedures, 2 evaluation procedures, and ended up, it started as a single lot, ended up in 3 contracts. We did 5 years and 9 months of monitoring, absolute maximum. Yeah, we actually started the monitoring right at day 1. And during that monitoring in the country, we had 5 governmental changes. 3 of those were interim, over a year without a regular government. 1 major change of legislation. This is the Public Procurement Act, meaning the procedures we monitored were within 2 different public procurement acts. And on top of that, we had a pandemic. So, citizen engagement, we did have a very good, I believe, plan in the beginning. It's a plan that didn't really account for any of those risks we faced. So I will not go through that plan at all. But the only thing that I will have to mention, and something that affected all of our citizen engagement activities, is 2 also considerations about the civil society and the citizens generally in the country. And these are that those could be very briefly and shortly in 2 words described as by the words fatigue and negativity. So this is something that is key for the people in the country, that generally they suspect the worst and are too tired to get engaged in the first place. So what we had a very nice plan, and that plan didn't work out. What we did is we started with what I will call passive citizens engagement. We did develop a website, a platform where we could share all the information about our project in what we believe was a very accessible and easy manner in several levels. For example, we have a very simplistic timelines that just has the key data. We have a longer reports. We have the full monitoring reports and everything there. So that was step one, and for information purposes, it does work, but we have no idea like who is reading it, if it makes sense to them, etc., etc. Step two was moving on to a more active engagement, and what we did was we broke this information into bits and pieces. We asked some provocative questions, and we started a very active social media campaign, because there you get the feedback. And that's the part where we unfortunately jumped right to the negativity of that I mentioned earlier, although I'm not sure you heard that part, but essentially the civil society in Bulgaria is very fatigued, very tired, and very negative towards anything that is government related, which historically could be easy to understand. So our social media campaign, at first we were not sure if we're doing good or not so well, because the main comments were negative, and they were not negative towards our work or towards anything, but generally towards the corruption that exists in the country, towards the new government, the old government, etc., etc. We were questioning whether we're doing right at this point, but we did a little bit of deeper monitoring of whether what we are sharing as information is actually being reflected somewhere. And at this point, we did find a platform completely unrelated to ours, and forum that is for people who are exchanging information and being active about monitoring, not monitoring so much, but following how the government money are invested, and especially how the infrastructural projects funded by government and the commission are being implemented. So we actually found out that there is part of this forum dedicated to the Železnica tunnel, and we are the ones that are feeding this information and discussions, because the contracting authority does not publish that much of an information, so they were referring to our site. So we call this one a little bit of a win. From then on, we tried to move to an even more active citizens engagement, and unfortunately, at this point was the time where when the pandemic was already existing, and unfortunately was already affecting us. The timeline of our project, this is not an excuse, but it's an explanation. The timeline of our project went like this, that even though we started very early, at 2019 was when the final contract for construction was signed. And when it was signed, it started with an engineering, with the design phase. So like the first 6-8 months were very, there was absolutely nothing visible for the citizens to be followed. There was no site where they could see. So the actual construction work started, and then the pandemic started, literally 2 months apart. We had a platform ready, and it's a really good platform, I believe, that was supposed to encourage people to actually take pictures when they travel, because a lot of people travel close there. and to encourage them to report, to explain what they could report, to go ahead and have a couple of trainings. That couldn't happen. Still, this platform proved useful because although we received very few reports from locals, which was not surprising, we did receive a few good questions from citizens that were interested, and it turned out that we're their go-to point. They didn't go to the contracting authority, they went to us. I believe that's a little bit of a win too for us, because first of all, we could filter, we could respond. There were multiple questions that were rather easy. As being the monitors, we could respond to them directly. We didn't even need to engage anybody else. And the questions we couldn't respond to, we directed to the contracting authority. And we were very pleased to have very swift response from them that we could then transfer and upload to our platform. And the last stage of our citizens' engagement that was not so much planned ahead, but is something that we figured we could do, and we tried it out at the last stage of the project last summer. We try to engage with students. Traditionally, as an organization, we have a lot of applications for internship, a lot of students that are interested in our work. And somehow in between the limitations, we managed to gather a group of those. We did training. We did test training on them on civil monitoring. They actually did very good. We have also a e-tool we use. They try to fill out our questionnaires. They got really interested, and the good part was that those students haven't still fallen to the negativity point of the society. So they were very open to information. They were very open to training. And the best part was that we were able to actually take them to on-the-spot monitoring, and to our greatest surprise, both the contracting authority and the contractors were very open to that. It's probably something that has to do with young people being well perceived. They were open, they answered all their questions. What you see in the tiny little picture on the right is actually not construction workers. Those are the students that we took, and they were taken around, even in the tunnel, shown and explained everything. And that, I believe, is for the most part the citizens engagement we did manage to the project. It was, as noted, not as well as planned, but having in mind the limitations, we are rather happy with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Michaela. So despite the hardship, some sort of involvement is possible. I'll post here a final brief question to both you and Grzegorz while we're trying to get hold of Paola. Imagine tomorrow somebody from the conference gets in touch with you and say, what would be your key learning or the biggest advice you would give to a prospect independent monitor who would like to engage or bring citizens closer to their IP activities? Grzegorz, let's start with you.
Prepare better and prepare more money. I mean, to
What would you have done differently then?
Well, I'm a little bit joking, because I mean, it's not only the question of preparation and money. I mean, and what Michaela said. I mean, you had a very good plan, but in the end, it didn't work, and it's not enough time to speak about all circumstances that make this participation broader. But also in our case, I mean, I think that the role played also the factor that in generally, especially in the region in which the monitored investment happened, I mean, the general condition of civil society is not very good. I mean, to be honest, I mean, there are not too many organizations. The mobilization it's not too big. You can see it on any data. I mean, electoral data, civic activity data, engagement in volunteering, and so on and so on. So, I mean, in many ways, it's simply difficult to mobilize people to anything. So this is also an important factor that you have to take in account. But I think that one of the solutions, because I have many solutions in my head, but I would say that one of possible solutions, especially in case of bigger infrastructural difficult projects, which are not by their nature very attractive to the people, is maybe to focus on engaging people on really crucial stages of investment implementation, any kind of investment that comes from public procurement. So in our case, what came out in the very end of our monitoring, in our case, for me, it appeared that one of these crucial moments was the preparation of this investment. On the stage of preparing feasibility study, I mean, there should be a moment where the monitor like us, when the contracting authorities, when there were no contractors, but contracting authorities or managing authorities should do more. I mean, but especially us, you know, acting as the monitors, as the civic observers, as the leaders. I mean, we should work more to engage people at this stage, because this planning stage is very important. And if something is not consulted, and the people are not involved in this at this very beginning, then after, when it's implemented, when you have tenders, when you have everything, when everything goes very much complicated, then it's very difficult to bring people's attention back to such an investment. And of course, this attention is bigger when something is exploding or there is a problem. Then you have this mobilization. But I mean, we didn't have an opportunity, I mean, to be at this stage, basically. If we had a chance to start monitoring from the very beginning of the investment, then I suppose we would have the bigger involvement in the later stages. So this is one of the solutions I would say.
I think that's a very big learning also on how to start engaging. Yeah, that's also something that we have captured from across the partnership. Michaela, what would be your take then?
Well, I was planning to steal the one Grzegorz just mentioned, but he was correct. Yes, early engagement is crucial. It's just not to think negatively, but it's very hard work too. We were not able, we decided against early engagement as we saw that the tender procedure was dragging for too long. And in this case, it's very, very challenging to keep people on board, because part of the idea of early engagement is to consult them in the beginning, to get them interested, and then to keep them on board for the whole process, which is very, very hard and very hard work for a longer project. So that needs a plan. But yes, otherwise, I fully agree with that. I also, what I mentioned last in my presentation, something I don't think we had focused, I mean us as TI Bulgaria hadn't focused that much on, is young people. And those are extremely easy and beneficial to work with. And these are people who are yet to form as professionals and as active citizens. So I think it's beneficial for both sides, and building a next generation that will be more active is also crucial. I think we shall be generally flexible and patient, because what we do now and what we invest in now could materialize in a couple of years, sometimes in a couple of decades too. And we have to be comfortable with that thought.
Thank you, Michaela, and also you have mentioned the early engagement. This is exactly what ActionAid has done in Italy, and we have heard from Paola how this has worked on their end. So this is not to say that each integrated park should have advanced social accountability models. this is not something that we are, let's say, promoting, but we are also seeing what could be that this can be a very important aspect, no? And it needs that initial planning, initial analysis that is very important to understand how to best develop your citizen engagement plan. So more in general, I would say I would just like to wrap up this session to say that effective social accountability is critical to the success of an IP as a tool that can bring long-term social change. My colleague Zala has posted, because citizen engagement can also be fun. So yesterday, some of you have won the Integrity Pacts Tender Defender game. You'll find the link there. This was a little bit of a snapshot of how we have approached the citizen engagement part on the project. And yes, and there will be more to come in terms of learnings, reports coming out on our website. Thank you very much. Believe it or not, we've reached the end of this session in one piece. Thank you for your patience, specifically to Michaela, Grzegorz, and Paola. I would like to close this session now, but please stay online because we will have a closing remark from Alejandro Salas, who's the head of global movement here at Transparency International Secretariat. So I would like to ask you, Alejandro, to take the virtual stage, activate your camera and mic, and we are all ears for this closing statement.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We cannot hear you, see you yet, but yeah.
Surprise! Here I am. Yeah.
Exactly. Now we can hear you and see you. Go ahead.
It's working, right? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ivan, and thanks everyone that is still holding strong at the end. I promise to be extremely fast, because it's very late. I think basically what I want to do is, of course, thank everyone. But I just want to say in particular that, as you very well know, corruption is very similar everywhere. I mean, paying a bribe to get a construction permit in my country, Mexico, is not so different from doing the same in Tanzania, in South Korea, or in Spain. A dirty procurement process in Canada would also not be so different from one taking place in France, in Italy, or you name it. Also, the ways to go about it, I mean, the laws, the rules, the systems, the prevention mechanism, the punishment mechanisms would also not be so different. What really makes a difference is the actors involved. It's the political context, it's the real politics of a specific country, which makes the difference on how good or bad the prevention or the work to counter corruption will take place. In that sense, I want to highlight how wonderful this project or this pilot has been for us. And for us, I mean Transparency International, but I think the whole anti-corruption movement, in the sense that it has allowed to put into practice a very well-known, a very strong civic engagement tool like the Integrity Pact, to put it in practice in several countries at the same time, and to be able to draw some general conclusions and some specific ones that you have been hearing throughout these last 2 days. So I think that's very important, because the learnings we have extracted, together with confirming what we already knew, but of course that openness and civic monitoring are instrumental role for having robust tenders, greater competition, equal treatment, and sound procedural management. It has also allowed us to give recommendations and to identify ways of strengthening more and making more robust the Integrity Pacts, with new elements such as open data and citizen participation. So I think it's very important to keep this in mind, and especially looking forward, because I agree in a way with what Anne Kirsten from DG Regio was saying before. This pilot has been great and has allowed to put into practice 18 integrity pacts across the map in Europe. But there's a new stage. This was, we call it a pilot. It was a pilot because what is coming is bigger. The expectation is very ambitious. It's something bigger we're aspiring to. So in that sense, we really think that the transformation that will be taking place in the work we do in Transparency International, we will definitely continue whenever pertinent and viable. We will continue engaging at the country level in being part of integrity pacts, but mostly as a group, as a movement internationally, mainly in Europe, but not only in Europe, also in other regions. We will be transforming ourselves, moving more towards becoming a knowledge hub. I think we have accumulated for so many years, and in particular in these last 6 years, so much knowledge, so much expertise, so much insight, and we had a very interesting taste of all of that during these 2 days of conference. So we are moving towards that, towards being a knowledge hub, to be able to provide knowledge to whoever needs it, be it a local authority, a national authority, be it civil society groups. It doesn't matter, together with the EU, of course, to be able to share this knowledge, to be able to bring capacity to those that need it, to be able to provide technical tools and skills. That's where we are transforming. That's where we see ourselves moving forward in the future. So please keep that in mind. And just to give you a taste, I mean, you have been hearing to the lot of things that there are on offer, but please make sure to already use the existing tools like the EU, the brief for EU decision makers. We have, of course, the integrity pacts, the 18 impact cases. We have just the launch of the integrity pacts guidebook that happened recently now during the conference. So there's already a lot of material. Please subscribe to the newsletter so you can keep in touch and you can have access and continue being part of this community. So as I promised, I will end it up here just by saying thank you, of course, to the team, first my team or the people I have the pleasure and privilege of working with, which is the people in the TI Secretariat, of course, Ivan, Ana, Rafael, or Rafa, as I call him, Sara, Eka, Sala, Paola, and Alina. You have done terrific work in different moments in the recent past in this project. There's a whole list of other people that I won't read now that have been participating throughout the 6 years. But these colleagues I just mentioned are the ones that carry the burden and the success of these last stages of the project. I also think that they deserve our respect and our thanks, our colleagues in the EU office, Raf, Elsa, Lucinda, Lucia, and Nick, who made this conference a success. But not only that, no, they have been active and supportive and engaging throughout the whole process and helping us be closer to Brussels. So thank you for that, colleagues in the EU. And of course, the 15 independent monitors who are the ones doing the hard work and the day-to-day and getting their hands dirty. Thank you very much. I mean, your job has been very difficult, very challenging, sometimes not grateful, but you have managed skillfully. And it has been a pleasure to hear you, to read out your experiences. Thank you for that. ActionAid Italy, Paola, Institutul pentru Politici Publice, sorry, my pronunciation, the Romanian Academic Society, the Stefan Batory Foundation, and our TI national chapters in several countries, Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Greece, Hungary, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Portugal, Romania, and Slovenia. And of course, I mean, there's a whole list of people to thank, but I think I will cut it short here, but not without mentioning the most important ones, because they made all of this possible, which is the people supporting us from DG Regio. I mean, they have been, and I say this with all honesty, not only providing financial support, which of course is very important, and of course this type of work needs funding to be able to happen, but I think the key thing is that they have been friends and partners, and we have collaborated together. I think that makes a huge difference. It's not about implementing a project on their behalf. It has been, these 6 years has been working together towards a shared objective. So in that sense, we are extremely grateful, of course, to Commissioner Ferreira, but of course to our colleagues which have been working in the day-to-day. And sorry if I don't mention everyone, but I have in mind Stefan, Inguna, Ana Maria, and of course, Justine. So anyway, I'll end there. I really want to congratulate again everyone. Thanks for the patience. Thanks for the excellent work. And remember, this is not an ending. It's the ending of the formal project, of course, but it's also a startup, a key moment for us in Transparency International and our partners and colleagues, where we move forward with this knowledge brokering, knowledge hub function that we are really aspiring to become to. So thank you very much. Good night, everyone. I don't know, Ivan, if you're gonna close, or this is the end of it. But thanks very much, colleagues, and good night.
Thank you, Alejandro. I think this is more than enough to close extremely well this two-day conference. Thank you very much to all of you. Till next time.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.